You probably heard the term, gee, by now I thought I would be. This is not something that's so uncommon for people. They have set sometimes expectations on being in a certain place in their life, a certain economic position, or a certain relationship position, or a business position, etc., and then they don't quite live up to it. You know, it's interesting whenever we are exaggerating ourselves and puffed up and inflated and manic and elated and maybe arrogant about, we tend to set too big of goals in too short a time frame. And whenever we're kind of meek and feeling shamed and humbled, we set too small a goals in too long a time. When we set too big a goal in too short a time, we get kind of humbled, and the other one, we get lifted back up again. And both of those are feedback mechanisms to set real goals in real times with real strategies. Many times people have expectations that are not quite realistic, and they don't have the strategy to obtain it. They've got an outcome. But I'd just like to throw something out that may be helpful in this arena. You have control over perceptions, decisions, and actions. You don't always have control out of the outcome unless you've taken the outcome and broken it down into some perception, decisions, and actions. So if you say, I want to make $1 million a year, that's an outcome. But if you know that you make a sale and it averages $5,000 a sale, and you know that if you do 20 of those sales, you get 100,000, and you need 200 sales by the end of the year to get $1 million, and that's just gross, that's not net. And then you have a 50% overhead, and that means you need 2 million in order to get $1 million to take home. Then you got to take the taxes, and you got to take that out of it. So you need almost 3 million in order to get the outcome you want. Then you need to have 600 sales at $5,000. So if you break it down and look at what the strategy is and what are the action steps that actually give you that result, so you can net that $1 million into your net worth, then you have something that's more controllable. If you just say, I want to have $1 million, and you don't have a plan of action that's there, you're less probable at getting it. I'm not against having a vision board. I'm not against having, a written goal. I'm all for that. I'm very much into that. I use that every day. But I also like to break it down into strategic planning. So there's some sort of action step that if you do this and you have these probabilities of accomplishing these things that you have control over, a perception, decision, action, you increase your odds of getting it. Your probabilities go up. So if you're not where you'd like to be, it's either because you don't have the strategy that's sound to get it, or you have other priorities that have come in the way that have taken precedent, or it's not really as high on your value as you imagine, and that is to be humbling you a bit because you're not really doing it. That's why I keep metrics on my goals to see if I'm on track, and if I'm not getting it on the time frame, I come up with another strategy, or I readjust the time frame, or I look at what's really priority and I try to adjust it. If you don't have a strategy and you don't have the action steps that get you to where you say you want, you're going to frustrate yourself. You're designed to. All those doubts and negativities and things you have, and so beating yourself up and all this stuff is just a symptom to let you know that you're not strategic, you're not really prioritized, you're not doing things that are actually actions you have control over. You just have an outcome. And my advice is to break it down into smaller bites that you have control over, that a perception, decision, and action can control, because that's all you have control over, and get real about it. And if you do, you'll increase the probability of doing it. Many people set fantasies instead of real objectives. And a fantasy's got a positive without the negative, and the negative is all the responsibilities you have. And if you don't know what those are, and you don't have the foresight to mitigate the risks and strategically plan the actions to give you the outcome, you'll probably end up with a fantasy and end up being distressed because you're not getting it. But if you set real objectives with real strategies and real times, and refine it and get feedback from your accomplishments and look at real things, you will increase the probability of achieving things. I'm not interested in being in some sort of esoteric world. You just visualize it and manifest things. That happens sometimes. But when you look and deconstruct what actually happened, it's usually a very clear strategic objectives that got you the result. So just throwing that out in case you felt that, gee, by now I thought I would be, and it's not there. I've had that many times in my journey and had to remodel my objectives and get realistic about the times or come up with a better strategy or put it as a higher priority. And when you do, you get the result. Time times intensity gives you your result.